Captain Lee Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride and looked at the stars ahead. His ship was the best that Earth had ever built. It could travel faster than light and had the strongest shields humans knew how to make. But today, something felt different about the space around them. "Captain, we are getting strange readings," said Park So-min from her science station. She was the smartest person on the ship when it came to understanding space and stars. Her fingers moved quickly over her controls as numbers flashed on her screen. "What kind of readings?" Dae-ho asked. He had been captain for 10 years and he had learned to trust So-min's instincts. When she said something was strange, it usually meant trouble or discovery. "Sometimes both. Energy patterns, sir. Very strong ones. They are coming from the Kepler 442 system, about 2 light-years away, but the patterns don't match anything we have seen before." Engineer Kim Tae-won looked up from his station. He was a big man with rough hands who could fix anything on the ship. "Captain, these readings are massive. Whatever is making them must be huge, bigger than our biggest space stations." Dae-ho felt his heart beat faster. In all his years exploring space, he had hoped to find signs of other intelligent life. Earth had been looking for aliens for hundreds of years, but they had found nothing. Just empty worlds and dead rocks floating in the dark. "Set course for Kepler 442, he ordered. "Maximum speed." The ship turned and jumped into faster-than-light travel. The stars outside became long streaks of light as they raced toward the unknown energy source. The journey took 3 days, but it felt like weeks to everyone on board. When they dropped back into normal space near Kepler 442, the crew could only stare in wonder. The system's star was old and dying, glowing a dull red color, but that was not what made them speechless. "My God," whispered So-min. 3 enormous structures floated in orbit around the dying star. Each one was the size of a small moon, but they were clearly not natural. They had smooth surfaces that reflected the star's red light, and strange patterns covered their hulls. The structures were connected by beams of pure energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Are those ships?" asked Communications Officer Choi Min-ha. She was young and had joined the crew only 2 years ago, but she was the best at her job. "No," said So-min, studying her readings. "They are much more than ships. Look at this." She put her findings on the main screen. "They are pulling energy directly from the star. Not just a little bit. They are drinking from it like it's a well." Tae-won's mouth fell open. "That's impossible. The technology needed to do something like that. We can't even imagine it." Security Chief Yoon Jae-sung, a quiet man who rarely spoke unless there was danger, stepped forward. "Captain, we should be careful. Whoever built these things is far more advanced than we are." Dae-ho nodded but didn't take his eyes off the structures. "So-min, how old do you think they are?" She worked at her station for several minutes before answering. "Based on the metal decay and energy patterns, Captain, I think these have been here for millions of years, maybe longer." The bridge fell silent. Millions of years ago, humans were still living in caves and learning to make fire. These aliens had been building moon-sized structures and manipulating stars when Earth was nothing but primitive tribes. "Life readings?" Dae-ho asked. "I'm detecting some kind of activity inside all 3 structures," So-min replied. "But it's not like any life signs we know. The patterns are too complex, too organized. It's like the whole structures are alive." Pilot Jang Soo-bin, who had been quietly flying the ship closer to the structures, suddenly spoke up. "Captain, something is happening." The 3 alien structures began to glow brighter. The energy beams connecting them pulsed faster, and new lights appeared along their surfaces. Then, without warning, a beam of blue light shot out from the center structure and swept across their ship. "Shields up," Yoon Jae-sung shouted. "Wait," Dae-ho said, holding up his hand. "The beam isn't trying to hurt us. Look at the readings." So-min studied her instruments. "He's right. It's scanning us, learning about our ship, our technology, maybe even about us." The blue beam swept over the Soul's Pride for almost a full minute. Every system on the ship recorded the scan, but nothing was damaged. When the beam finally stopped, the 3 structures returned to their previous state, glowing softly in the light of the dying star. "They know we're here now," Min-ha said quietly. Dr. Lim Hae-won, the ship's medical officer, had been silent until now. She was a careful woman who always thought before speaking. "Captain, I've been studying the scan data. Whatever just examined us has technology so advanced that we look like children playing with toys by comparison." "But they didn't attack," Tae-won pointed out. "If they wanted to destroy us, we would already be dead." Dae-ho walked to the front of the bridge and stared at the 3 structures. For his entire life, humans had wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now he knew they were not. But these aliens were so far beyond human understanding that it made him feel very small. "Captain," Somin said, "I'm reading new activity. All three structures are changing their energy patterns. It's almost like what? Like they're talking to each other, deciding what to do about us." The crew watched as lights moved across the surfaces of the alien structures in complex patterns. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. They were witnessing a conversation between intelligences that had existed since before humans learned to write. "Sir," Minha said, "should I try to send a message? Let them know we come in peace?" Daeho considered this carefully. First contact with an alien species was the most important moment in human history. Every word and action would matter. Not yet, he decided. For now we watch and learn. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we make any moves. The Soul's Pride continued to drift in space, its crew studying the three ancient structures. None of them knew that this moment would change everything for humanity. They had found something that would challenge every idea they had about their place in the universe. The great trio had noticed them. Now the real test would begin. 3 hours passed in tense silence aboard the Soul's Pride. Captain Lee Dae-ho had ordered his crew to study the alien structures while staying at a safe distance. Everyone worked quietly, afraid that any sudden movement might anger their mysterious watchers. Then Communications Officer Choi Minha's station began beeping rapidly. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission," she announced, her voice tight with excitement and fear. "From where?" Dae-ho asked, though he already knew the answer. "The center structure, sir. It's a mathematical sequence." Minha's fingers flew over her controls as she tried to decode the message. "Prime numbers, then the Fibonacci sequence, then. Oh my. What is it?" "They're showing us pi, but calculated to 1,000 decimal places." Then they switched to showing gravitational constants and the speed of light. "Captain, they're proving they understand our mathematics and physics." Science Officer Park So-min hurried over to Minha's station. "It's a greeting protocol," she said after studying the data. "They're showing us they're intelligent and that they understand universal mathematical truths. It's exactly what our scientists always said we should do if we met aliens." "Can you respond?" Dae-ho asked. Minha nodded and began sending back Earth's own first contact sequence. She transmitted prime numbers, basic mathematical concepts, and information about human understanding of physics. Then she waited. The response came immediately. But this time, it wasn't just mathematics. "Captain," Minha said, her voice strange. "They're sending something else. It's like they're laughing." "Laughing?" "Not exactly laughing, but the pattern suggests amusement, as if they find something funny about our message." Before anyone could respond, the transmission changed completely. Complex symbols and patterns flooded Minha's screens. The alien message was far more sophisticated than anything humans had ever created. "I need help with this," Minha said. "It's too complex for me alone." Dr. Han Bo-ra, the ship's linguist, rushed to the communication station. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who could speak 12 human languages and understood dozens more. If anyone could crack an alien language, it would be her. For 6 hours, Bo-ra worked with Minha and So-min to decode the alien message. The rest of the crew waited, bringing them food and staying quiet while they worked. Captain Dae-ho paced the bridge, checking on their progress every few minutes. Finally, Bo-ra looked up with tired but excited eyes. "I think I have something," she announced. "The message is incredibly complex, but I've found patterns. They're not just one species, Captain. They're 3 different kinds of aliens working together." "3 species?" Dae-ho asked. "Yes, and they call themselves the Great Trio. Each species has a different role." Bo-ra put her findings on the main screen. The first species calls itself the Architects. They seem to be the builders, the ones who create those massive structures. She pointed to new symbols. The second species is called the Weavers. From what I can understand, they manipulate space and time itself. They might be the ones who taught the others to travel faster than light. "And the third?" So-min asked. "The Gardeners. They seem to be the ones who watch over younger species and guide their development." Bo-ra paused. "Captain, I think they've been watching us for a very long time." A chill ran through the bridge. Security Chief Yoon Jae-sung spoke what everyone was thinking. "How long?" Bora returned to her work, studying more of the alien message. "According to this, they've been observing human development for centuries. They knew about us when we first started using radio waves. They watched us split the atom, build rockets, and leave our planet. Why didn't they make contact before?" Daeho asked. "Because they were waiting," Bora replied. "They have rules about when to contact a new species. We had to reach a certain level of technology first. Building faster-than-light ships was the test." Engineer Kim Tae-won looked confused. "But why wait? If they're so advanced, why not help us develop faster?" Bora translated more of the message before answering. "Because most species fail. According to this, they've watched thousands of intelligent species develop over millions of years. Most never leave their home worlds. Others destroy themselves with war or pollution. Only a few make it to the stars." "And those that do?" asked Medical Officer Lim Hai-wan. "They get tested further. The Great Trio evaluates each species to see if they're worth knowing. Most fail that test too." The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Humans had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew they were not only not alone, but they were being judged by intelligences far older and more powerful than they could imagine. "What happens to the species that fail?" Daeho asked quietly. Bora's face was grim. "They're ignored, left alone to develop or die on their own. The Great Trio only helps species they consider worthy partners." "And us?" Minha asked. "What do they think of humans?" Bora worked for another hour translating more of the message. When she finally looked up, her expression was puzzled. "This is strange," she said. "According to their message, we've done something that has never happened before in all their millions of years of watching species develop." "What do you mean?" Daeho asked. "They say we've surprised them. Every other species they've encountered has followed predictable patterns of development, but humans have done something different. Something they call beautifully chaotic and impossibly stubborn." Pilot Jang Subin laughed despite the tension. "That sounds like humans, all right." "But they won't tell us what we did that was so different," Bora continued. "They say we'll understand soon enough." Suddenly, Minha's station lit up with new activity. "Captain, they're sending another message. This one is different. It's an invitation." "What kind of invitation?" "They want to meet us face to face, but not here." Minha studied her readings. "They want us to come aboard the center structure. They're offering to send a transport ship." Yoon Jae-sung immediately stepped forward. "Absolutely not. We don't know anything about their intentions. It could be a trap. Or it could be the greatest opportunity in human history," So-min countered. Daeho looked around at his crew. These people had followed him across space to explore the unknown. They had dedicated their lives to discovering what was out there among the stars. Now they faced the biggest discovery of all. "How many crew members are they asking for?" he asked. "The message says a small group. No more than 5 people." Minha replied. Daeho made his decision. "I'll go. So-min, I want you with me for your scientific expertise. Bora will need your language skills. Minha, your communication abilities. And Yoon, I know you don't like it, but we need security." Yoon nodded grimly. "If you're going, Captain, then I'm going too." "Sir," Taewon protested, "what if something happens to you?" "Then you take the ship home and tell Earth what we found here," Daeho replied. "But I don't think they mean us harm. If they did, we'd already be dead." An hour later, a ship unlike anything humans had ever seen approached the Soul's Pride. It was smooth and silver, with no visible engines or weapons. It docked with their ship so gently that they barely felt the connection. As the 5 crew members prepared to board the alien vessel, Daeho looked back at his ship one last time. He was about to meet the Great Trio face to face. Whatever happened next would change humanity's future forever. The alien transport ship was unlike anything the 5 humans had ever experienced. As soon as they stepped inside, Captain Lee Daeho felt like he was walking through liquid light. The walls seemed to glow from within, and there were no visible controls or seats. The ship simply knew where they wanted to go and began moving. "This is incredible," whispered Science Officer Park So-min, running her hand along the smooth wall. "The technology here is beyond our understanding." Communications Officer Choi Minha was recording everything with her portable devices. "Captain, I'm not picking up any engines or power systems. It's like the ship is powered by something we can't detect." The journey to the center structure took only minutes, but it felt like hours to the nervous humans. When they finally docked, a doorway appeared in what had seemed like solid wall. Beyond it lay a corridor filled with soft, warm light. "Stay together," ordered Security Chief Yoon Jae-sung, his hand resting on his sidearm. "We don't know what we're walking into." They moved through corridors that seemed to change and adapt as they walked. The wall showed them pictures of stars, planets, and strange alien worlds. It was like walking through a living museum of the galaxy. Finally, they entered a vast chamber with a ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness above. In the center of the room stood 3 figures, each clearly from a different alien species. The first was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished metal. It had 4 arms and eyes that glowed with blue light. Dr. Hanbo-Ra recognized it from the translations as one of the architects. The second alien was stranger still. It seemed to be made of pure energy, constantly shifting and changing shape. Sometimes it looked almost human. Other times it appeared as geometric patterns floating in the air. This had to be one of the weavers. The third alien was the most surprising. It looked almost like a giant tree with bark-like skin and branches instead of arms. But its face was kind and wise, with eyes that seemed to hold the knowledge of ages. This was clearly one of the gardeners. "Welcome, humans," the architect spoke, its voice coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "We are honored to finally meet you in person." "The honor is ours," Captain Daeho replied, trying to hide his nervousness. "We've traveled far to learn about you." The weaver's form shifted into something resembling a smile. "You have traveled far, yes, but not as far as you think. We brought you here for a reason." "What reason?" asked So-min. The gardener's branches rustled like leaves in the wind. "To give you a test, young humans, but not the kind of test you might expect." Before anyone could ask what they meant, the chamber around them began to change. The walls faded away, replaced by the view of a dying world. Cities burned in the distance, and the sky was filled with falling meteors. "This is a simulation," the architect explained, "based on real events that happened long ago. We are showing you the final days of a species called the Corvani." The scene was heartbreaking. Alien beings that looked like large furry cats ran through the streets in panic. Their world was being destroyed by a cosmic disaster, and they had no way to stop it. "Every species we test sees this same scenario," the weaver said. "We asked them to find a solution, to save the Corvani from extinction." "What do other species usually do?" Bora asked. "They try to relocate the Corvani to other worlds," the gardener replied. "Or they build shelters to protect them, or they find ways to redirect the meteors. All logical solutions." So-min was already studying the simulation, her scientific mind working on the problem. "How long do we have?" "As long as you need," the architect said. "But the Corvani are dying. Every moment you delay costs lives." The 5 humans gathered together to discuss their options. Around them, the simulation continued. They could hear the cries of the Corvani and see their cities crumbling. "We could evacuate them," suggested Minha. "Move them to safer parts of their planet." "That won't work," So-min said, studying her readings. "The entire planet is being bombarded. Nowhere is safe." "What about moving them to other worlds?" asked Bora. "Look at the numbers," So-min replied. "There are billions of them. We couldn't move them all in time." Yoon Jae-sung was quiet, watching the simulation carefully. Finally, he spoke. "What if we don't try to save them from the disaster?" The others looked at him in confusion. "I mean," he continued, "what if we teach them to fight back against it?" Daeho's eyes lit up. "You mean instead of running from the meteors, we help them stop the meteors?" "Exactly. Look at those meteors. They're following predictable paths. If we could give the Corvani the right technology, they could destroy the meteors before they hit." So-min began working furiously on her portable computer. "It's risky. The technology would be dangerous. Some Corvani might die trying to use it, but they're dying anyway," pointed out Bora. "At least this way, they have a chance to save themselves." The 3 aliens watched silently as the humans developed their plan. Instead of trying to rescue the Corvani, they would arm them with weapons powerful enough to destroy the incoming meteors. Instead of accepting the disaster, they would teach the aliens to fight back against forces of nature itself. This is insane, Minha said as they worked out the details. We're basically asking them to go to war with the universe. Sometimes that's what it takes, Deho replied. Sometimes you have to refuse to accept that something is impossible. They entered the simulation and began working with the Corvani leaders. At first, the cat-like aliens were confused by the human plan. Why fight when they could flee? Why take such risks when safer options existed? But as the humans explained their reasoning, something changed in the Corvani. They began to stand straighter. Their voices became stronger. Instead of victims waiting for rescue, they became warriors preparing for battle. Engineer Kim Tae-won, watching from the Soul's Pride, would later say he could see the change even through the ship's monitors. The Corvani weren't just being saved anymore, they were being inspired. Working together, humans and Corvani built massive weapons that could reach into space. They organized the entire planet into a unified defense force. When the largest meteors approached, instead of hiding, the Corvani stood together and fought back. The battle was terrible and beautiful. Many Corvani died operating the dangerous weapons, but for every meteor they destroyed, 1 million lives were saved. And, more importantly, they were saving themselves. When the last meteor was destroyed, the Corvani didn't celebrate their rescue. They celebrated their victory. The humans had given them something more valuable than safety. They had given them the power to refuse defeat. The simulation ended, and the 5 humans found themselves back in the chamber with the 3 aliens. But now the aliens were looking at them with something that might have been wonder. In all our millions of years, the architect said slowly, no species has ever done what you just did. What do you mean? Asked Deho. The Weaver's form shifted rapidly, showing excitement. Every other species tried to save the Corvani. You taught them to save themselves. More than that, added the gardener. You taught them to fight impossible odds. You showed them that some things are worth fighting for, even when victory seems mathematically improbable. The 3 aliens looked at each other in a way that suggested they were communicating without words. You have passed our test. Humans, the architect finally said, but you have also taught us something we thought we had forgotten. What's that? So-min asked. The gardener's branches rustled with what might have been laughter. That sometimes the most advanced solution is to refuse to accept that there is no solution at all. The chamber filled with a strange humming sound as the 3 aliens communicated in ways the humans could not understand. Captain Lee Dae-ho and his crew waited, unsure if they had impressed their hosts or somehow offended them. Finally, the architect stepped forward, its metallic skin gleaming in the soft light. Humans, it said, we must tell you the truth about why we tested you. The reason will change how you see yourselves and your place in the galaxy. Science Officer Park So-min felt her heart racing. What truth? The Weaver's energy form shifted into complex patterns. In our millions of years of existence, we have encountered exactly 4,947 intelligent species. Of these, 3,291 achieved space travel. Of those, 892 reached other star systems. And how many passed your test? Asked Communications Officer Choi Min-ha. All of them, the gardener replied, its bark-like face showing what might have been sadness. Every single species that reached us passed our test with perfect scores. Security Chief Yoon Jae-sung looked confused. Then what makes us different? The architect began walking around the humans, studying them as if they were fascinating puzzles. Every species that came before you solved our test in the same way. They found logical solutions. They calculated the most efficient methods to save the most lives. They worked within the laws of physics and the limitations of reality. That sounds reasonable, said Dr. Han Bora. Yes, agreed the Weaver. It is reasonable. It is logical. It is what advanced civilizations do. They learn to accept the boundaries of what is possible and work within them. The gardener's branches swayed gently, but you did something that no other species in the history of the galaxy has ever done. You looked at our test and said, this is wrong. Wrong how? Asked So-min. You refused to accept that the Corvani should be victims, the architect explained. Every other species tried to save them from the disaster. You taught them to reject the disaster entirely. Captain Dae-ho was beginning to understand. You mean other species accepted that the meteors were unstoppable? Exactly. They worked around the problem. You attacked the problem itself. The weaver's form brightened with excitement. No species has ever looked at natural forces and said, "We refuse to accept this." The chamber around them began to change again, showing images of the galaxy. Thousands of star systems appeared, each one representing a different alien civilization. "Let us show you what advanced civilizations look like," the gardener said. The first image showed a species of crystalline beings living in perfect harmony. Their cities were beautiful beyond description, their technology flawless. The Prism people achieved perfection 50,000 years ago, the architect explained. They have no war, no hunger, no suffering. They solved every problem they faced. "That's wonderful," Minha said. "Is it?" asked the weaver. They also stopped growing. For 50,000 years, they have not created anything new. They have not explored beyond their perfect worlds. They have achieved everything they wanted, so they stopped wanting anything. The next image showed enormous space stations orbiting multiple stars. The ring builders mastered space and time itself, the gardener explained. They can travel anywhere in the galaxy instantly. They can manipulate matter at the atomic level. They have godlike powers, but, Somin asked, sensing there was more. But they have become bored with their godlike powers. When you can do anything, nothing seems worth doing. They spend their time in perfect contemplation, thinking great thoughts but never acting on them. Image after image showed the same pattern. Species after species had achieved incredible advancement, solved all their problems, and then stopped. They became perfect, peaceful, and completely stagnant. "You see," the architect said, "intelligence naturally leads to efficiency. Efficiency leads to perfection, and perfection leads to stagnation. It is the natural path of all advanced civilizations." "We thought this was the way things had to be," added the weaver. "We ourselves have become stagnant." The architects build perfect structures but never innovate. The weavers manipulate space-time but never explore new possibilities. The gardeners guide species but never learn from them. "Until now," the gardener said, looking directly at the humans. Yoon Jae-sung frowned. "I don't understand. What's so special about refusing to accept limitations?" "Let me show you," the architect replied. The chamber changed once more. Now it showed the human crew member Oh Kyung-soo, a theoretical physicist who had remained on the Soul's Pride. He was studying the energy readings from the alien structures, completely absorbed in his work. "Your colleague is not just trying to understand our technology," the weaver explained. "Watch what he does." On the display, they could see Oh Kyung-soo making notes and sketching diagrams. He was analyzing the Great Trio's energy systems and finding flaws in them. "He's criticizing your technology," Bo-ra realized. "Yes," the gardener said with obvious delight. "He sees technology millions of years more advanced than his own, and his first thought is not, how can we learn from this? But how can we make this better?" Engineer Baek Dong-hyun appeared on the display next. He was examining scans of the alien structures and drawing modifications. He wasn't content to copy their designs. He wanted to improve them. "This is impossible behavior," the architect said. "Advanced species become humble when faced with superior technology. They accept their limitations and try to learn gradually. Humans look at superior technology and immediately start trying to fix it," the weaver added. "You have the audacity to think you can improve upon perfection." Dr. Shin Ye-jin, another crew member, appeared on the display. She was questioning the fundamental physics that the aliens used to power their structures. Instead of accepting alien science as fact, she was trying to find better ways to understand the universe. "Your species has a unique trait," the gardener explained. "You refuse to accept that anything is the best it can be. Show a human perfection, and they will immediately start looking for ways to make it more perfect." Captain Daeho felt a strange mixture of pride and confusion. "Is that good or bad?" "It is unprecedented," the architect replied, "and it is exactly what the galaxy needs." The three aliens moved closer to the humans, their forms radiating excitement. "We have achieved everything we set out to achieve," the weaver said. "We have perfect technology, perfect peace, perfect understanding, and we are dying from it." "Dying?" Somin asked in alarm. "Not physically," the gardener clarified, "but spiritually, intellectually, creatively. We have learned everything there is to learn. We have built everything worth building. We have solved every problem worth solving. We need chaos," the architect said bluntly. "We need someone to come into our perfect galaxy and ask the stupid questions that no one else thinks to ask." We need someone to look at our greatest achievements and say, "That's nice, but what if we tried this instead?" added the weaver. The gardener's branches rustled with something that sounded like hope. "We need the catalysts." "The what?" asked Deho. "That is what we want humans to become. The fourth member of our alliance. Not as students or junior partners, but as equals with a very special job." "What job?" Minha asked. The three aliens looked at each other, then back at the humans. "Your job," the architect said, "would be to prevent the galaxy from becoming too perfect, to visit our most advanced civilizations and politely cause just enough trouble to get them thinking in new ways again." "You want us to be professional troublemakers?" Yoon Jae-sung asked. "Professional innovators," corrected the weaver. "Professional dreamers. Professional askers of impossible questions." The gardener moved closer to the humans. "Would you accept such a role?" Captain Deho looked at his crew. They had come here as explorers, hoping to make contact with alien life. Now they were being offered the chance to reshape the entire galaxy. "What would this mean for humanity?" he asked. "It would mean you become the most important species in galactic history," the architect replied. "The ones who keep the universe from falling asleep." Captain Lee Deho stared at the three alien beings who had just offered humanity the most important role in galactic history. His mind raced as he tried to understand what they were really asking. "You want us to be the catalysts," he said slowly, "to wake up civilizations that have become too comfortable with perfection." "Exactly," the architect confirmed, its metallic skin gleaming with excitement. "But we must be honest with you about what this means." The chamber around them shifted, showing images of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. Each one was beautiful and perfect in its own way, but they all shared the same quality: complete stillness. "This is what you would be working with," the weaver explained, its energy form dancing through the air. "Species so advanced that they have forgotten how to grow. Civilization so perfect that they have stopped dreaming." Science officer Park So-min studied the images carefully. "How do we help them without destroying what they've built?" The gardener's branches rustled with approval. "That is exactly the right question, and it shows why you are perfect for this role. You think about consequences. We don't want you to destroy their achievements," the architect added. "We want you to inspire them to build on those achievements, to dream bigger dreams." Communications officer Choi Min-ha looked puzzled. "But how can we teach civilizations that are millions of years older than us?" "By being yourselves," the weaver replied. "By asking the questions they forgot to ask. By refusing to accept that their perfection is truly perfect." The three aliens moved closer to the humans, their forms radiating hope. "Let us show you what we mean," the gardener said. The chamber changed again, showing a massive galaxy-spanning empire. Cities covered entire planets and space stations connected star systems like a vast web. "This is the Eternal Empire," the architect explained. "They achieved perfect harmony 10,000 years ago. No war, no crime, no suffering. Everyone has everything they need." "It sounds wonderful," said Dr. Han Bo-ra. "It is wonderful," agreed the weaver. "It is also completely static. For 10,000 years, nothing new has been created. No new art, no new science, no new ideas. They have achieved perfect happiness, but they have stopped being human." "Well, not human like you," the gardener corrected with what might have been a smile. "But you understand what we mean." Security Chief Yoon Jae-sung frowned. "What would we do there?" "You would visit as official representatives of the Great Trio," the architect replied. "You would study their society and then ask simple questions." "What kind of questions?" "The kind that humans ask naturally," the weaver said. "Like, why do you do it this way?" "And what if you tried something different?" "And wouldn't it be interesting if—" The display showed scenes of the Eternal Empire's perfect cities. Everything was beautiful and ordered, but nothing was changing or growing. "Your job would not be to tell them they are wrong," the gardener explained. "Your job would be to help them remember that perfection is not the end of the journey. It is just another place to start from." Captain Deho was beginning to understand the true scope of what they were being offered. "You're asking us to become galactic consultants for creativity." "In a way, yes," the architect agreed. "But more than that, you would be the ones who prevent the galaxy from falling into eternal sleep." "What about Earth?" asked So-min. "What happens to our homeworld and our people?" The three aliens looked at each other in that way that suggested silent communication. "Earth would become the center of the Catalyst program," the weaver explained. "Your entire species would be trained for this role. Some would be explorers, visiting stagnant civilizations. Others would be teachers, showing other species how to ask the right questions. And some would be innovators, added the gardener, constantly pushing the boundaries of what is possible and sharing those discoveries with the galaxy. The architect gestured and new images appeared. They showed humans working alongside aliens from dozens of different species, all of them engaged in building, creating, and exploring. This would be humanity's gift to the galaxy, it said, the gift of permanent dissatisfaction with the status quo. Minha laughed despite herself. You want to make stubbornness into a galactic profession? We want to make curiosity into a galactic necessity, the Weaver corrected. And humans are the most curious species we have ever encountered. Bora looked thoughtful. What would happen to the great trio? Would you still guide and build and weave? We would continue our roles, the gardener replied. But we would also learn from you. You would help us remember how to grow and change and dream of new possibilities. You would teach us to be imperfect again, the architect added, and in being imperfect we would become more than we ever were when we were perfect. Yoon Jae-sung had been quiet for a long time, but now he spoke up. This is a huge responsibility. What if we make mistakes? What if we accidentally harm one of these perfect civilizations? Then you would learn from those mistakes and do better next time, the Weaver replied. That is another uniquely human trait. Most advanced species fear making mistakes. Humans seem to learn the most from the mistakes they make. The chamber filled with gentle music as the three aliens waited for the humans to make their decision. Captain Daeho looked at each of his crew members, seeing the same mixture of excitement and terror in their eyes that he felt in his own heart. We need to discuss this, he said finally. Of course, the gardener agreed. Take all the time you need. The 5 humans huddled together in one corner of the vast chamber, while the aliens waited patiently. This could change everything for humanity, so Min whispered. It could also be the greatest adventure in human history, Minha added. Or the greatest disaster, Yoon Jae-sung pointed out. We're talking about interfering with civilizations that could destroy us without thinking about it. But they're asking us to help them, Bora said. They need what we have to offer. All eyes turned to Captain Daeho. As the leader of the mission, the final decision was his. He thought about humanity's history, about how humans had always pushed forward, always asked what if, always refused to accept that something was impossible. He thought about his crew back on the Soul's Pride, already trying to improve upon technology they barely understood. We accept, he said, turning back to the 3 aliens. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The chamber filled with light and sound as the great trio celebrated. The architect's metallic skin rang like bells. The Weaver danced through the air, leaving trails of rainbow energy, and the gardener's branches swayed in a wind that seemed to come from joy itself. Welcome to the great quartet, the architect said when the celebration died down. Your first mission is already prepared, the Weaver added. The eternal empire we showed you is ready for visitors. Remember, the gardener said gently, your job is not to fix them. Your job is to help them remember how to fix themselves. 3 months later, Captain Daeho stood on the bridge of a new ship, built with both human and great trio technology. Around him, his original crew worked alongside alien partners, preparing for their first official mission as catalysts, approaching the Eternal Empire's border, announced pilot Jang Subin. Communications, standing by, reported Minha. All systems ready, said engineer Kim Tae-won from his station. Daeho smiled as he looked at the perfect, static civilization spread out before them. Soon it would be a little less perfect, and that would make it infinitely better. Open a channel, he ordered. Time to ask some interesting questions. Behind them, the great trio watched with ancient eyes full of newfound hope. The galaxy was about to become a much more exciting place. The age of comfortable perfection was ending. The age of beautiful chaos had begun, and it was all because humans had never learned when to stop asking, but what if we tried this instead?